Cool. All right, everybody. So this is going to be our demo on the Retouch project. This will be really quick. I'm just going to go through all the steps that we need to achieve a retouched and colorized photo. So very first thing I want to do, I always want to make sure that you have a reference for where you started from. So generally what I like to do is I want to copy my first layer. Okay, and the best way to do that is just to grab it, bring it over to where the new layer button is and let go, and it should provide you a layer 1 copy. Okay, and then I'm going to name layer 1 background, or I'm sorry, we'll say original, and this will just let me have a layer that actually is like untouched, so in case I do something that I mess up and I can't go back and claim or fix or reclaim what I've done, then I have something to get off of. Okay, now we have our new layer. I can go ahead and turn the old one off. We have our new layer, and this one is the one I'm going to start working on. So we have to do a few things before we can retouch and colorize. The first thing is we have to get our values figured out, and the next thing is we have to get our image size figured out. So first things first, let's go get our values figured out. The best way to do that is going to be going up to Image, Adjustments, Curves, or you can go ahead and hit Control and M, and it'll bring curves right up for you. All right, now to review, this is a histogram. The gray area, the light part right here, this is your pixels. This is the pixel range. So this is this is the blackest you can get and the whitest you can get. And it looks like right now our photo has pixels in this kind of dark gray range here. And we have the lightest pixels are kind of in this light gray range here. So what we want to do is we want to shrink all of this so that our very black goes all the way to where the pixels start, and our white goes all the way to where these pixels start. Or I guess a better way to say it is just to spread this out, spread the pixels out so they go the full range. So there's a couple ways. One, you can go ahead and just drag this over to where you want the pixels to go, and it'll do that for you. And keep in mind, when you look over here on this side, you can see this seam and this crack where the photo looks like it was folded. That's pure white, and that's what we want. We want this to stay pure white, and we don't want pure white anywhere on the photo, because realistically this photo wouldn't have any white on it. It would have lots of value, lots of gray. Okay, let's say your photo was a lot more complicated though, and you really weren't sure where you wanted things to go. You can just choose an area with an eyedropper, and you can click on a spot, and you can say that's where I want my black. And you can see this new blue line, this blue and green line, that's going to be your new curve. That's where your very dark is going to start. And then your white, this is where you want to choose your white. Like I said, I want to get right in here on this seam so that I can tell it this is where I want my brightest value to be. And it's going to do basically the same thing. But as I said, this could be something that's a little bit more complicated in other photos. You can also adjust the curve. You can tell, instead of it being a linear progression of value, you can have it be something that weighs a little bit more on one end than the other. So I can have it bend up so that it gets faster, brighter faster, or darker or brighter slower. Okay, so it's going to progressively take more time to get to those pixels, and you can really mess up your photo doing this. It's kind of fun. So now I'm locking basically these midtones. This right here, I'm going to lock them up over here basically in white, and I've essentially erased all of these pixels, these bright ones, and I've brought them down here. What I'd rather do is just kind of mess with it. So I can say, like, maybe I want my bright area to be a little lighter, and maybe I want my dark area to be a little darker. Okay, so this is what we call an S-curve, and that's kind of like a nice way to get pieces built up. Some of them don't really need it though. You can even do the opposite, where you can have your darks be a little bit brighter and your brights be a little darker, and it'll more neutralize everything. I'm going to stick to just the linear curve. It's a lot easier, it looks nice, we're totally fine. Hit OK. All right, so now we got to make our image larger. So we're going to go up to Image, Image Size. I'm going to go over to on my other screen the image options. Okay, so right now this image is 5 by 7 at 96 pixels per inch. I don't want that. I want to go somewhere more along the lines of 11. Okay, 11 wide, and then as long as this little chain link right here is linked, you're going to see, like if I link it and I hit 11, it's going to stretch that photo out. Okay, so I want to link it, and now I've got a ratioed photo. So if I make it this wide, it's going to do the math and figure out how tall it needs to be. And then the resolution, we can go ahead and just do 72. Doesn't need to be any higher than that. 72. Okay, and then make sure that you have resample on, and it's usually going to start off as automatic. Go over to preserve details 2.0. That's going to make all of your image basically stay the exact same, but it'll just be larger. And you can say reduce noise. I'm going to go to reduce noise like around 50%. All right, so now image did not get bigger. What happened here? Did I do something wrong? Live my 1772, blah, blah, blah. Hit OK. There we go. All right, so the image is larger. There are more pixels. It's still the same quality. There's not a whole lot of detail, but you know, that's the way it is. So we're good now. We can start. We can start retouching. Now the first thing on the retouch end, let's go find our tool that we're going to use. We have the spot healing tool brush, and then we have the healing tool brush. Okay, you can cycle through those by hitting J, Shift and J. And so as you can see, it changes. And so the one where it shows a little circle, that's the spot heal. I can just use this and go over some of these lines with the brush and get over them. Kind of use the pixels that are around the brush to fill in these little dots. If I want to make the brush bigger, I can hit the bracket, right bracket, and left bracket to make it smaller. And I'm just going to clean it up real fast. This is going to be not the highest quality image because I want to make sure that this is a nice fast video for you guys to watch. So I'm just going to bust through this real quick, nice and quick, real fast. Okay, and that's good. Now I'm going to go to the spot, or get out of the spot heal, and we're going to go over to the healing brush tool. And to use this one, I need to find an area that I want the brush to access the pixels from. So I hit Alt, and this is going to give it a target, and I can click a spot, and then now when I brush, it's going to use that targeted area. Now I got to be careful because if we look closely, you can see the pixel value is different, and it makes it look like a bump. So a good way to mitigate that is make your brush a bit bigger, grab a spot that's like right next to where you want to start working, and then go at it. And you can see it's a little bit better. You still might not have to go and fix it later on a little bit, just to kind of give it some smoothing, but it's looking more like what I'm asking it to look like. Now we get up to a point where if I try to get this one nice and clean, the best way you can do it is to find like these edges that look very similar to where you want to go. So I can find a spot here, and I can click, and it'll do the math and sort of blend it out. And I can keep clicking, and then it'll sort of keep trying and draw a little bit on it too, and just sort of rebuild that space. Now what I don't want to do is that, where it sort of like blows everything out, so it's going to try it one more time. That's a little bit better. But I can always clean that up in a minute. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, get this area done. Okay, now I've got these two areas that I want to correct. It looks like this one is right along her face, and there's not a reference area that'll make this easy for me to do. So I'm going to go over here to normal in the mode up here. I'm going to go to replace. And what this is going to do is going to give me a nice hard edge that I can use to sort of carve out the shape that I'm looking for. And then I can very cleanly draw in what I'm asking it to do. Okay. Like right up against it. It's almost reshaping her face, which, as you recall, we talk about you're going to be doing a lot of art directing on this as you're going along. So this is sort of your interpretation of how the photo should look. There is not a correct way for the photo to look, and that's sort of what retouch artists get paid for, is to do their best to make a photo look good with what they have. Okay. Try to make this a little bit bigger. You want to do little small sections, okay? You try not to do one of these, because that's just gonna really mess up the quality of what you're working on, because I think everything sort of deserves its own little area of focus. Okay, little bits at a time. Make the brush bigger for this part. Doesn't need to be so small. Okay, let's go get that edge. I'm gonna go over to the replace. Nice and sharp. And then I'm going to go back to normal. clean that up. Looks a little more natural. I can always fix that like that. Okay, now over here, this part's easy, real fast. And, you know, sometimes you can mitigate things. You don't have to be perfect. You can be like, I don't want that little loop. I'm going to take it out. Like I said, this is sort of up to your discretion. You're the artist, so you can make choices that you feel are more appropriate to the design you want to go for. That being said, please respect the photo. That means don't change things so that it doesn't resemble the original. That's sort of the best way to describe how you should think about working, is do your best to resemble the original. And leave it like that. It's okay. Okay. I know I just said not to do what I just did, but this is a fairly easy spot, so I'm not gonna, if you guys decide to do it on that part, that's not a big deal. Okay, so now, got most of the stuff all cleaned up, everything looks nice. I'm gonna have to fix that, so quick easy way, just go back over to the spot healing brush, make the brush bigger, and then I'm gonna sort of let it blend those areas together, make it look a little nicer. Find anything that sort of looks a little off, like you can see the little bit of a seam there. Just gonna go in, do little dabs, and get rid of it. All right, that's good enough. I'm happy with this. Okay, so now what I can do is start colorizing. Finding little extra spots I don't like that I want to get rid of. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. That way I have the original value layer if I want to fix something, or if I mess up on the colorize and I don't like it. So I like I said, I grab the layer, grab that layer, go over to the little box with the plus sign, let it go, and it should make a copy for me, and I can turn the old one off. So now I'm going to go up to filter, and we're going to go to neural filters, and it's going to open up the neural filter menu for you. Mine is taking a little bit of time, and it keeps opening on my second monitor, so excuse this for a second. There we go. Plug this back in on the side over here. Interesting. I wonder why it's not. Oh well, it's not a big deal. So this is what the filter menu's like. I'm going to go down to Colorize. If you guys haven't downloaded it, which most of you guys should have, make sure that you have. Turn it on, and it's going to automatically start colorizing stuff. And it does a pretty good job, but it's not the best. So I'm going to start working on really getting it to look the way I want to. And this is where you work on that. I'm going to click on the spot. See this here where this has got this kind of gray blue? I want that gray blue to extend into this area. So I'm going to click on the spot. I'm going to pick a color, sort of like a nice gray blue, and it's going to fix it for me. It's going to try to understand what I'm asking it to do, and it's going to make its best choices to do so. So you click on a new spot with the same color, and it's going to gradually start changing it. Now, we've got a little spot here where they blend. I've noticed that some of you guys really, really want that to not be that way. You want to fix it. So I'll show you a cool little trick. We're going to cancel. I'm going to go back. If we go here, and if you guys have watched the other videos, you can go to the lasso tool. You can lasso out this spot, so you can select it, and then we can go over to normal, go to multiply, which is on the layer modes from the other video. I'm going to grab a soft brush, and I'm going to very softly make sure it's on multiply. Make a new layer, make sure it's on multiply. Softly sort of paint in this area, and what it's going to do, it's going to create value, and then I can go ahead and go to the eraser tool. Oh, my E's not working. Eraser, there we go. I'm going to go grab a nice round brush again, and I can sort of erase this part off. And now look, I got a nice hard edge of value, and that should allow me, when I do my colorize, to have a distinction between the clothing and the background. I'm going to merge this down into this layer, so I'm going to right click on the layer, I'm going to go to merge down, and then now if we look at the original, layer plus this layer, if I toggle it, you can see the difference. Alright, so now I'm going to go up to colorize again, filter, neural filter, and I'm going to keep going with what I was doing. Turn it back on, click on the spot, get my blue. Remember, it doesn't work on value, so if I go over here and I'm like, I want this to be like a dark blue, if I go like this, it's not gonna register it as dark blue, it's just gonna see it as blue, because it's using the color, the hue of the color you're choosing, this part, not this part. or I'm sorry, not this part, it's using this part. So I can go to saturated blue, really bright, and it'll work. Or I can go to really desaturated blue, really, really mellow, and it'll work. But I'm not going to get lighter blue or a darker blue. It's just going to use the value that's already on the photo. Okay. Now I can go over here, and maybe I want this to be like a nice red. Maybe here too. Okay. And then, let's see. On her face, we're going to have to correct that in a different way. So I'm going to say, this is okay for colorize. I've got all the information down that I want. We're good. I'm going to go down to the bottom. I'm going to make sure I have this as output as a new color layer. This is very important. I'm going to click that. It's going to make it a color layer for me, and I'm going to hit OK. And then now I have a color layer above my value layer, and it's separate. So it hasn't colorized this value or this layer. It's giving me a layer that is the color. And if you look at the layer mode up here in the panel, it's in color mode. Okay, so if I go to normal, you'll see what the color looks like. And if we go back to color, it'll be just like that. Okay, so now I can edit this photo. I can edit how I want it to look. If I go to brush, the brush tool, and I click get a nice, we'll say like, yeah, we'll do the soft brush. Make it smaller with the bracket, left bracket. And I can zoom in a little bit, holding the space and control. I can color pick a color by holding Alt and clicking on that area. Click, and then now I have the color that I wanted. See if you guys look, you can click. And I'm going to click on that spot, and then now I'm going to colorize on the color layer. I'm going to colorize this and make it the brown and not the red. And I can really get in there and clean this up, make it look nice and pretty. Okay. And that's about it. Oh, her teeth. Pretty good, don't forget those teeth. Red teeth. There we go. All right, so that's about it, and that's all it is for this. So make sure you guys follow these steps, and I want you guys to try to work non-destructively. Have all your layers separate so you can see your progress as you go through. So the original, your colorize, or your value, and your cleanup, any additions that you make to it, and then your color. All right, guys. Thank you.